My name is Violetta Bergel. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the MAP laboratory in Marseille for a year and a half. And I'm currently working on the visualization of spatiotemporal data in the context of the scientific project for the restoration of Notre-Dame de Paris. So, in the previous presentations, my colleagues had presented various tools integrated in the ENDAM ecosystem, which are dedicated to the collection and enrichment of digital data related to the cathedral. So if we use all these tools together, we reach a point where we are able to collect all the digital data produced all along the restoration site, but also to describe them and to enrich them. That's to say, we are able to create a significant corpus of resources related to the same cultural heritage object, in our case, Notre Dame. And as you can see, these resources are very heterogeneous. They concern various temporal states of the cathedral, various areas of interest. They are also of very different natures. So among them, we can find lasergrammetric or photogrammetric 3D point clouds. We can find pictures, drawings, but also restitutions hypotheses, 3D meshes, semantic annotations from Aioli, chemical analysis, and even spatialized sound samples, and so on. So finally, it's a context that raises important issues in terms of exploration and manipulations, since in view of this diversity, the manipulation of each data individually would theoretically require the use of several specific software. And it will obviously be a big problem in terms of accessibility, and also it will considerably reduce our capacity to cross the views between actors, whereas this project is highly multidisciplinary. To address this issue, we developed a 3D web viewer based on the Pottery.js library. So it's accessible from a simple browser to all the project members. And the aim of this 3D viewer is to centralize and spatialize in a common reference system all the data related to the cathedral, whether they were produced before or after the fire. So here the keyword is really to make easier the access to the data and knowledge produced all along the restoration. But this aggregation of resources must also facilitate the cross-visualization of the elements produced by all the working groups, with the aim to help to identify potential correlations between different analyses, different observations, and so on. So to do that, a very first step is to align each data with a reference model. So in other words, to compute its position and orientation in a predefined coordinate system. In our case, this operation is performed upstream before the web visualization. But in any case, once the spatialization parameters are known, the data can be loaded into the viewer, and it's done while maintaining a permanent link with ArcheoGrid that Sarah presented this morning. So in this way, each element is always linked to its metadata, and thus also always linked to the vocabulary terms from OpenTeso, which facilitates the exploitation and ensure the data traceability. And of course, each element can be displayed or hidden freely by the users, but to simplify the navigation, the cathedral space has been segmented into different volumes, following the nomenclature of spaces in use for the restoration, which is also predefined in OpenTeso. For example, a user can choose to display only the elements concerning the choir, or more specifically the tribune of the apse, or even more specifically the tier 1 span. So in this way, we can offer a first filter driven by users' interest. Here, it's only a filter by spatial proximity, but the very same logic could be applied to the metadata to build this time a filter by documentary or even by semantic proximity. For example, if I want to display only the elements produced by a specific person, or at a specific time, or even representing a specific phenomena. And also, the viewer is directly connected to Aioli, the module dedicated to semantic annotation. So, as Roxane Roussel mentioned previously, In the case of Notre Dame, several projects were carried out on Aioli following the diagnosis made by the architects in charge of the restoration. And all these projects can be loaded directly into the 3D viewer, and it can be particularly interesting to contextualize or confront the observations made by the actors of the scientific project and the one of the construction site, or also to track the same phenomena on different temporal states before or after the fire. The descriptive sheets associated with the annotations containing all semantic informations are also loaded as metadata. So, as I said before, one of our targets would be to improve the exploitation of this information, to be able to filter the elements visualized in 3D, for example, to display very quickly all the stones that need to be replaced. And here is just a preview of the annotations from the diagnosis presented previously by Roxane on a pre-fire point cloud, just to give an idea on the amount of information we have to deal with. Well, I won't spend much time on the interaction tools because they are quite classical. The large majority comes from the native functionalities of Pottery, the measurement tools and so on. In fact, for the interactions, the challenge mainly consisted in proposing ready-made parameters, some kind of texture or manipulation presets intended to facilitate the analysis in very specific contexts. However, it's obvious that the needs of the restoration site and the needs of the scientific project evolve over time. So we make the viewer evolve accordingly. For example, what you can see here is the beginning of a work done with the metal working group on the loading of chemical analysis. So basically, the members of the working group provide us with an Excel file containing different samples they analyzed. And each sample is located in 3D by a simple triplet of coordinates, and also associated with a list of quantitative values characterizing its chemical composition. So in our case, these measurements are loaded into the 3D viewer as shapes in the 3D scene, and all the corresponding data are represented in the side panel as a diagram for better understanding. But in addition to the fact of just locating them in space, here the interest of loading this kind of data in the 3D viewer would be especially to allow to filter the display of the samples with thresholds. For example, to display in 3D only the samples whose lead content is higher than a given value in a specific area of the cathedral. And what you can see here is a work done with the stone working group, whose goal was to realize the anastomosis of the collapsed vaulting ribs in the nave. So in red is the theoretical parametric model of the vaulting rib that Antoine Gros presented before, and that was made using pre-fire data. And in the same time, all the ribstones found in the nave after the fire have been digitized in 3D by Mercurio. So from there, we were able to test different localization hypotheses by placing in just one click each ribstone on a theoretical position, with also the possibility to quickly invert the backside and the front side of the block, also to change the color to show the uncertainty of the hypothesis and so on. And of course, it's also possible to export the synthesis table of the hypothesis. And most of all, the same approach could be applied to many other study cases on the site, for example, on the rough structure remains. And to finish with this example, I think the ribstones are really an interesting case study in terms of visualization and manipulation, because we know for part of them their post-fire position, and we also have some hypotheses of pre-fire positioning. So finally, each block is associated with several spatialization information. And in this case, which one should we use? To answer to this kind of situation, we set up a kind of temporal slider, what you can see here, that allows us to change the position of a block in the course of time. So here we can see the N1A stone, which returns back to its pre-fire position, so we are virtually moving up the arc. Obviously, it also raises a few problems. First, because we have to interpolate the known position to deduce a trajectory, which does not correspond to any physical reality. So on the video, you can clearly see that the block crosses the wall. And also because it raises important matters in terms of temporal granularity, since in order to go further, we would have to be able to characterize the chronology and the scale between different ways of expressing a date, a moment, a time, and so on. But finally, until now, the contribution of the ENDAM ecosystem lies essentially in its capacity to allow the aggregation of heterogeneous resources and their manipulation in a common spatial reference system, with the aim to facilitate the collaboration of actors of different disciplines around the same cultural heritage objects by allowing to quickly cross the information produced during the restoration. And today, as Livio said this morning in introduction, this work opens very interesting perspectives in terms of analysis, since the corpus we managed to create in this way will allow us to introduce very new data multidimensional correlation mechanisms by taking into consideration at the very same time all the notions of space, of shape, of time, and most of all of knowledge domain through the analysis of the semantic relations that can be established between two different concepts. So here, the idea would be to set up mechanisms, autonomous or not, but that will be able to propagate semantic attributes to all the relevant resources from the corpus, thanks to the information accumulated during the documentary and semantic categorization stages, and above all, to build new interconnections between these resources and between the concept manipulated based on the cross-analysis of the corpus elements. So, in other words, here the idea is to try to characterize some links between actors, some links between disciplines mobilized on the project, even some links between the observed phenomena, maybe to detect possible occurrences, synonyms, and why not even causal relationships. So the goal would be to be able to provide exploration and interrogation tools that will be capable of taking advantage of all the quantitative and qualitative information accumulated within the very same digital environment. And on this point, there are many interesting things to explore, for example, to enable multi-criteria queries, such as I wish to visualize in 3D any resource representing a vestige with length greater than 1 meter found in spaces bordering the T22 span and prior to the June excavation. Of course, this example is purely fictive. It was just to give an idea. But it's clear that it's quite complex in that it includes several criteria of very different natures. First, we have a documentary criterion with any resource, which gives us an indication of the file types expected in output. Here, any type. And then a semantic criterion, since the extracted resources must be linked in one way or another to the term vestige, which implies being able to define precisely what this concept refers to, and also which concepts are close or similar to it. Then we have a geometric criterion, which gives us limits on the dimensions of the projection of the vestige in the 3D reference system, which necessarily implies being able to set up a link between a semantic assignment and a geometry. Also, we have a spatial criterion with a precision on the relevant span, which implies being able to define precisely a nomenclature for spaces and shapes, and the hierarchical relations between the elements resulting from this division. But also it implies to control the spatial referencing of all the corpus elements, whatever their nature. And finally, we have a temporal criterion, which requires several things. First, to be able to date all the resources, which raises questions of granularity, and also to do it in an harmonized way, thus relying on a shared and stable temporal division, and it's really not trivial. I think I do not have so much time left, so I will finish here. But basically, our idea would be to rely on a kind of meta-knowledge model, which will be built as a big graph, synthesizing all the information related to the project, whether in terms of spaces, shapes, actors, and so on. And this graph will have to be continually updated through correlation mechanisms that will constantly seek to define new relationships between the nodes. And then the joint exploitation of this graph and the capacities of 3D rendering engines in terms of geometrical analysis should allow us to execute quite fine queries on the corpus from both quantitative and qualitative criteria, and eventually to arrange informational spaces to propose new exploration modalities. So these modalities could be based on intuitive expression modalities like natural language or even serendipity. Well, it's a work in progress. It's very exploratory for now. We started to have interesting results, but there is still a lot of stuff to do. But really, I think that it could open up very interesting perspectives, and not only for the continuation of the project itself, but also to understand the mechanisms that led from data to knowledge into different communities around a same cultural heritage object. And I finish on this picture, which is just a screenshot of very early results that were obtained by the transcription of Notre Dame's thesaurus, and also of all the diagnosis Aioli annotations as a big graph that was just used to count the number of stone elements to be replaced in the cathedral. Well, I stop here. I hope I didn't take too much time. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you want to deepen some topics discussed today, there is some videos on notredame.science. They are in French, but I think it's possible to activate the subtitles. Thank you.